Hey, what happened?
I lost internet. Sorry.
Okay, you got it back?
Yeah.
All right.
Welcome to the Accounting Technology Fireside Chat Podcast. Now, sit back and enjoy while Nick and Trevor help you use your technology to make money and delight your clients.
Well, hello, Trevor. Welcome back to the Accounting Technology Fireside Chat Podcast. Good morning. How are you?
I'm excellent, Nick. It's the rain has stopped finally here, and life is pretty good. We're getting into our colder season down in Melbourne, which I don't mind. As you know, I don't mind that, and the world seems to be, well, for Australia, seems to be quite stable. I don't think I'd like to be in India, but
No. Well, you'd be delighted to know it's pouring with rain in Sydney, so it's fairly horrible here. So you've got nice
like
weather in
Seattle.
Melbourne for once.
Sydney must be like Seattle.
No, really isn't. I've lived in Seattle, and Seattle, it rains a shit ton more than Sydney. I probably shouldn't swear on the podcast, but there you go.
That's all right. Yeah.
Cool. So what are we going to talk about today?
Well, today I wanted to really discuss and probably dig down into the document management system, documents and managing documents, and all of these sort of things that accountants have had to deal with for quite a while as they moved over to the basically 100% paperless, and have they moved to be 100% paperless. We've come a long way in 10 years, and you and I have been right at the forefront of it. A lot has come, a lot has go. There's new kids on the block in the space, but I want to go right from the beginning and talk about, what constitutes a good document management system. What things do you need to look for, and even dig into the concept of Teams and SharePoint and OneDrive and all that. I've had a lot of people say, I want to use OneDrive for my document management system. So there's a lot of confusion in their marketplace about what all that means. So they're the things that I wanted to talk about. I remember back the MyOb days, when we were with MyOb at my accounting firm, and we had a company called Eclipse came to us and said, we've got a new document management system we think you should have a look at. I was very keen to sort of move into that paperless office arrangement and create a document system. That document system ended up being bought by MyOb. It was level 31, and then it turned into MyOb Document Manager, which was written by Rob Cameron, who currently who's writing FYI docs. So he's now back into the space. So probably 15 years ago was when he wrote that app, and it was built around Outlook. From memory, I don't know if you ever saw it, Nick, the original one.
No. Tried to avoid that. I was doing other things, right? At that stage, I was doing enterprisey stuff, so wasn't really playing around this space.
But the design of it was never designed for you to be able to move document management systems easy.
Mm-hmm.
They never think it was always, well, we'll get you in there. We'll give you a document management system to do that. But I always think an accounting firm needs to say, well, how easy is it for me to move if I want to change? Yep. If I want to swap and change applications, that was the whole goal when I was moving into the Xero world and thinking of that was, I want the flexibility to use applications as and when I want to. I don't want to be locked into anything. And, we're seeing it now with M-Files as well. A few firms have gone to M-Files, and M-Files is awful to move your documents away from when you want to change. And, and add into that lock-ins that that they put over you, require you to sign up for 5 years and all of these sort of things. So these are things that we've got to be careful of as an accounting firm. We've got to think about what are the things that do we need to think about when we're looking at a document management system, and what are the features that we want. And sometimes certain features could, if we're saying, okay, well, we want a particular feature in terms of an integration or something like that, and then we forget about, well, what's our ultimate goal with our document management system, and then we end up stuck in it.
So that's kind of a really good place to start. Let's really go back to the beginning. What type of documents do accountants have to store? What type of documents do they produce? And before we had any of this automation, how was it all done? Let's start with that.
Yeah. Okay. Well, you've got your Word document, and they always like to have a template with that, don't they? They like to be able to have a template with standard letters that integrates with your practice management system, where all your names and addresses are. And
hold on. Let me. I'm trying to get back a little bit before templates and words and everything like that. Let's go back to the beginning. So you create returns, you create charts of accounts, you create ledgers, you create letters. What other types of documents do you create or get given?
Charts of accounts, I wouldn't say we create. I wouldn't, ledgers. We prepare financial statements. You'd say for a business, we prepare their financial statements, their profit loss balance sheet, notes to accounts, directors' statements. We do ASIC documents. A lot of ASIC share transfer forms and all of those sort of things need to be done. Tax returns, if you want to go, if you're going back that far, we weren't even doing BASs, but tax returns was one, covering letters explaining where everything was and getting them to sign the document and so forth, and telling them where to sign and what they've got to do, and giving them a summary of what occurred, in the year or in the period that you created those documents for. We would do, as you said, letters, but the letters were around, mainly advice and so forth. And then other communication, like in terms of newsletters and sending things out like that, newsletters to tell, keep clients up to date and keep them informed of what's happening in the marketplace. So emails.
Would you keep a copy of every document, email, newsletter you sent to a client in your file room? What would you keep in your file room? All the documents you keep and have to manage, right? Because it's fine. Sending somebody an email saying hi is something. Sending them something as a piece of advice you need to keep is something else, right?
Yeah. And that was filed in a filing room, so printed out. So we would keep the tax returns. ASIC letters were kept in their own corporate register in its own filing area for the particular company or trust or whatever. The any letters of advice, and usually communication letters, covering letters, which went out with the statements and so forth. We kept that information, and we kept all their work papers as well. So we would prepare work papers. I forgot about that. We would prepare work papers for the client. And
so for people who don't know, because it's not only accountants that listen to this, right? What's a work paper?
A work paper is basically evidence of how you came up with, so the evidence of the original information that you used and the workings that you made to come up with your final set of financials or a tax return. So it's that evidence that you had to document. If anybody wanted to say, well, how did you come up with a profit of $150,000? Oh, well, we had sales of this and we had expenses of that. And here's all my evidence, the original documents, and here's all my calculations that I've done to come up with that figure.
Right. So work papers for a medium to large organization could be huge, right?
Massive. They were, they were huge. Yeah. Folder, probably an A4 folder for every single year.
Wow. And how many years do you have to keep this for?
7.
Wow. And you'd keep this in a ever expanding file room, I'd assume.
Ever expanding file room. I think when we went paperless, our filing room was probably the equivalent of 4 offices, probably 200 square meters. It was ridiculous.
Wow.
Yeah, of a 700 square meter office, we were.
What about backups, right? So if you were, our office collapsed. If your office was to collapse and you could not access that, would you have backups of those?
No, that was the whole problem. So you had in your insurance policy, and I still think insurance companies charge you for reworking those documents. So recreate them. I don't know how they would ever recreate them, but
Wow.
to go and recreate all those documents if you ever had a fire or something, there's a massive insurance. Part of your insurance premium was recreating those documents. And
That's enormous.
yeah, I couldn't. I haven't looked at an accounting firm's insurance policy to see if they still have that premium in there for that. Because I would say a lot of accounting firms wouldn't even have that much paper in the office. I think they say they're paperless. They're not paper free. It's not. There's a big difference. Like I would say I'm paper free. I have no need for any paper with my little accounting firm. No need for any paper, and for the other business I've got, I don't keep anything. Anything that's written, I think we were talking about the other day. We're moving offices with Ashfords, and the only thing I'm seeing sort of is these notebooks and a few other things going around. They're doing a lot of scanning. They don't want to move anything again. They do. There is a habit that building up piles of paper that they get scanned and eventually throw out. But the whole analogy, if I haven't looked at it for 3 months, it's not really relevant so long as the most important things are getting filed.
Okay, so whatever document management system you're going to use to solve that problem, sounds to me like you need a whole heap of discipline to not fall back into the old ways, right?
Well, I remember Hanson's days. I'd sit there and we were, 2010, we're trying to move to a paperless office, and I'd walk around the office, literally every 2 or 3 weeks and go, what's all this paper on your desk? Where did this file come from? So they'd gone, like we were talking the other day about trying to, scan and file all your old documents, and we gave up. It was just such a big task. You imagine, massive room of paper. We'd employ someone to do it, fingers bleeding, pulling bloody paper clips and staples out and all of those sort of things. And and that's thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars to move that paper into a digital format back then, and we made the decision, let's just file it by year, put it in a room, and every time the 7 years came up, if it wasn't something permanent we had to keep, we just disposed of it, which was an archive system, which is another thing we've got to think about as we go digital. We've got to really be careful of archive, and I think that's a separate session to talk about by itself, the whole archive policies.
I think we could. So core to this kind of theoretical document management system we're building in this chat, which is way more fun than talking about specific ones, is the ability to store and retrieve documents, right?
Yeah.
So
easily.
All right. In the old world with your filing room, who'd go and get documents from the file room? Would it be anyone?
Yeah.
So anyone would be able to walk in there and grab a document?
Yeah. Many a time I squashed support. We had a filing filing person, but anybody could go in there. Many a time we used to have those big things on rollers, that we'd drag across, to massive rollers, and the filing person would be sitting in the thing, and you come in to go and grab a particular document. You go, all right, I'm going to Q section, walk into Q section, go find, the client that I was looking for, and, roll this big door across and hear, help, and they're stuck in there in the other end of the, 30 cabinet thing that moved across. So, the concept of how much space we used for filing documents and how much money we spent with floor space and with people filing documents back now, we've changed the whole thing of, we've got an expectation that this should be cheap.
Yep.
We used to invest, like if you think about it, a person looking after all the filing, that's 50, less 50, 60,000, back then $30,000. The floor space, for the area, that was probably 30 grand.
Moving. $30,000 a year.
A year just for the floor space to file it all in there with, and then the time and motion studies of going and getting it and losing it and archiving it.
Here's kind of like another question, right? You've got all these files in documents, which, an analogy for that is all these files in folders, right? Same stuff. Yeah. Have you got any way, like if I go to a library, if one still existed, but let's say I went to a library and say, if I knew kind of the genre of the book, the author and the book name, it's really easy to find. But if I wanted to find a book with a chapter on, the northern beaches from 1840 to 1880, there's a book of fiction, I'd have a really hard time finding that because that kind of classification hadn't been made, right? Is it the same in your filing room where if I want to pull out all the files of all the clients where Jim did their tax return between May and August last year because he wasn't very well.
No hope.
No hope. Right.
No, you wouldn't be able to get it, I was even thinking back, beyond that, remember those, if you're talking about libraries, the fish, that stuff where they used to have to get a machine to go and
microfiche
to go and look at the document. Like it was ridiculous. It was crazy because they were trying to keep the technology, the space down just for the paper that you listed everything on where it was.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
So you'd have
madness.
Right. So you've had this horrible index where you microfiche and all sorts of things.
I remember the funniest thing that we used to have. Right, funny story. Right, so you imagine you set up a trust, right? So you set up the Shoemaker Family Trust, and the argument always I had was just file it under SCH 4963. Don't put it under THE 4653.
Right,
because every one of our clients and our filing lady, bless her little cotton socks, just said, no, that's the first one there. So then you would have to go in and you imagine how many the trusts we had.
Oh, yes.
We go in there. That was like 3 cabinets by itself, all TH.
Oh, that's cracking. So, it seems to me like you get some benefits from replacing like with like. So I've got all these folders, I put them in folders, I scan the documents, I've now got this kind of electronic filing room, but it suffers from a whole bunch of limitations that your old filing room suffered from. Here's an example. If you're really busy, you pull out 5 files. You've got ABC Corporation, DEF Corporation, and ZXY Corporation. And you pull out one document to have a look at them in each, and you file them in the wrong ones, and you put those away. You're never finding that again, are you?
No.
Right? It's the same in files and folders.
Even in what you said before, crumbs, Johnny accountant's done a few things wrong. So I want to go and find all the work papers that he worked on or all the letters that he wrote. That would be really hard in a system where you filed everything into, if you duplicated what we originally did, which is what we're 10 years down the track.
Mm-hmm.
We're 11 years down the track. 11 years, mate. And we had this problem back 11 years ago, and I still hear the same thing going. I like folders. Yep. My team, my business needs folders and all of those sort of things. And you go, really? Okay, so why do you need folders? Because then I can't find something. What about search? So, we had an accounting firm that we worked a lot with, and we built our systems to cope with their file naming protocols because they didn't believe us that the document you could search within the document itself to go and find something. So we would have the amount of money we spent building those file naming protocols because people just wouldn't move. It was crazy.
Yep. It's funny, isn't it?
And then they would use it. They would use it. We trained them up on it. And then 3 years later, 2 years later, they go, this is a waste of time. And they'd stop using it. And you go in and say, you're not using the file naming protocols. Oh, no, because we can find any document anytime. But no one believed us.
Yep. That was interesting. You're not bitter at all about that, are you, Trev?
Not bitter, but it was the particular one I remember. We remember they had a filing lady person. She would not change. She was the delay of the whole project, and it went on and on because she realized that she was going to be out of a job.
Yeah, which is funny because there's people who've actually retrained from that and are doing really valuable things now, but some people
do other stuff, but they don't want to do it. It's sort of like, let's focus on what you can do better with technology. If we can get technology to improve what you do, let's do something better. But the human nature is, if I can't do that, if I'm not needed, then I'm going to be displaced.
So I think we've got to the point now where replacing your legacy filing system, and I use legacy in the term, but paper-based folders and files with something which mimics the paper-based environment might seem a really easy learning curve, but you just carry over all the same issues and risks and problems you had before into this new one. So that really means, right, anybody who's using Windows Explorer, or anybody who's using OneDrive, or anything which kind of does that, puts you in that bad position, right? You're being bought a cup of tea.
No, my phone. Sorry.
You don't want that in the middle of a podcast, do you?
No. Sorry about that.
No, that's all right.
So anyway, see me trying to go, no, don't bring it in.
I'm on a podcast. Anyway, we're doing well at these. Anyway, so fundamentally, and I think that's where we'll wrap today, because what I want to do next week is we'll stop today with the scary let's replace like with
talk
like.
About what it was. Yeah, let's not.
And then
think about what we
next week, let's talk about where you should be and what you really need. And we'll kind of do a 2-part series on doc management. I think it's fun because we're already 20 minutes into the podcast and we're still debating, what would happen if Johnny had done bad work papers, etc., etc. So it's worthwhile us thinking about that, because those are drawbacks of those systems, right?
Oh yeah, massive drawbacks, but it's like everybody still has got those habits, and it's not just accounting firms. People are adamant on businesses. And now I'm doing businesses, and the businesses are adamant that things have got to be filed in a structure that they can go and find and file and pick it up. And I go, so now go search for that document. Oh, that was easy. I said, so the amount of time we spend trying to file it in a folder compared to, and then also think about what I said way back. Remember when I talked about we had all our documents and we archived it? So our archive process was just chuck it in a room, no one will go get it anyway.
Yep. They didn't, did they?
No. Think about how often you go and get a document. I know you need to find it when you find it, but how often do you go back to it?
Yeah, that's an interesting point. So that's go on.
And one other thing we need to, one thing, there is a period of time when you're working on the file. You almost need a holding place where you're going to put it. And I think that was one of the things that we forgot about in our process, was we were like, just file it. It doesn't matter. But I think we need a holding place where we store the documents, then we move them while we're doing work papers and all of those sort of things, because I think that was probably a really, that was where you go, okay, well, I'm currently working on that and I'm building up my stuff. I need to store it somewhere while I'm doing that, so it's in one place. But that's also something that we need to cover off as well.
Yeah, so let's think about next week coming up with a solution for all of those scenarios and see what we can do, because I think I might have one.
Excellent. Oh, really?
Yeah, what a surprise, eh?
All right.
Jeff, that's been awesome. I've really enjoyed that this morning. It's been lots of fun, and I look forward to carrying on with document management next week. And I'll now send us an email so we remember what we're doing next week. That'd be cool.
Okay, we'll catch you then.
All right, brilliant. So everybody, thank you so much for listening to the Accounting Technology Fireside Chat. If you like what you're hearing, make sure you subscribe, leave a like, or leave a comment telling us what you want us to cover in one of these broadcasts. If you hate us, tell us as well. It's really interesting to know. Trevor, everyone, have a fantastic day.
Thanks, Nick. See you then.
See ya. Bye.